I am a happily married mom of 4 amazing kids who've all gone through our Jefferson County Public Schools. I have a daughter in elementary school, a son in middle school, a daughter in college, and a daughter who just graduated from college. So I kind of run the gamut there. A little bit about myself. I was adopted when I was 3 1/2 from a foster home, and by a little Japanese mom and a Navy officer for a dad, a Vietnam War vet. So Clint and I had a conversation earlier about that. So they raised me from the very moment to teach me that I'm not a victim of my circumstance, and that through hard work and doing really good in school that I can be successful and achieve my dreams. And so they made me work really hard. So I did really well. I went through public schools myself. I graduated from high school as a Sterling Scholar, and then I went on to get my bachelor's degree, my master's, and ultimately my doctorate degree, where I worked primarily with at-risk kids. And what I learned from that experience is that hard work and a good education system would help them rise above their circumstance as well. I've had a great opportunity this last year to work being a champion for all different kinds of children's causes, from childhood cancer to fitness, to working with kids in poverty in our Title I schools, to working with youth in crisis and shelters. So I've had a really great opportunity, and being engaged in my community is really important to me, and I really think that's something that we need to bring on the board. So I'm running for school board because it's important for me that all of our children in Jefferson County have an opportunity to have a great education. I think that's extremely important. And my name is Erica Shields, and I look forward to having your vote, and I can't wait to have some conversations later today. Thank you.
Erica, will you introduce Matt?
Oh. I would like to introduce a really great guy, Matt Van Giesen, running in District 1.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you all for having me here today, especially Fred and Russ for inviting me here today. So thank you. Tell you guys a little bit about myself. I'm a Jefferson County native. Born and raised here in Arvada. I have 4 children. I'm happily married. I have 4 children from 12 weeks old through 7 years old. So that means I've got 50 years ahead of me still in Jefferson County Public Schools. I grew up poor. My mother and father, we were in a trailer park when I was a kid. And my mom would drive me. She open enrolled me at Lawrence Elementary in Old Town Arvada, where she would drive me in because that was where her hair salon was in Old Town Arvada, so it was important that she was close to me. My dad was a very involved father as well when I was a kid. He was my Little League coach. He helped create a baseball organization in Arvada, and he was also the PTA president when I was in school. So it was very important to me to also be an involved father and an involved parent. It was the example that my dad set, and it was an inspiration to me. After Lawrence Elementary, I went to Drake Junior High, where I was one of the last 9th grade students at Drake before moving on to Arvada West High School. At Arvada West High School, I had several great teachers, one of which, Miss Mitchell, who is Ron Mitchell's wife, actually. She was one of my favorite teachers. She taught me several things. She taught me how to cook, how to balance a checkbook, and how to clean the kitchen. But most importantly, the thing that I got out of that class was the friendship that blossomed into the relationship that turned out to be my wife, Erin. She is also a Jefferson County student from K through 12. She went to several elementary schools as a child. She grew up with a single mother, economically challenged as well. She went to Dean, Stevens, and Swanson Elementary, North Arvada Junior High, and Oberon Junior High, and then finally Arvada West High School. So because of our economic background, it was important for me to volunteer in some of our lower income schools. And prior to Pleasant View closing, I was heavily involved in their Golden Backpack program, making sure that kids got to eat over the weekend. And so it's important to me to make sure that we continue to keep our neighborhood schools open. And that'll be something that I'll be looking to talk to you all about today. And again, it's Matt Van Giesen for District 1 at Jefferson County Board of Education. I really appreciate the time you guys gave me here today. Thank you.
I want to know who instituted hand clapping suppression. Is that a Jefferson County regulation? Okay, look, I'm gonna get both of them back up here. I'd like to have you ask any questions you want to ask them. If you want to direct it at Matt or Erica or both of them, I think you should stress that. Again, I'm going to say short questions, short answers. I always want everybody who has something to say something. But that means don't prolong it, because when somebody says, well, I have 3 questions, no, you don't, give one. And then if we get around the room, then you can have another one. This is a forum. It's a public forum, and we're here to learn and to teach and to share. So y'all come back up, and you guys y'all be forming your opinions, your thoughts, and
Teacher.
What were you saying? You got the first question.
Could I please?
Well, since you said please.
Just so you know, we're excited to be here and learn from you as well. So we are soaking on it.
Eric, I have a
Yes,
question
sir.
for you.
Yes. Clint.
Am I on? Yeah. We talked briefly before the meeting. This young lady wears more than one hat. She is also part of the vets group. Explain that a little bit. Do you know how many vets we have in here today?
Raise your hand if you're a veteran. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for your service.
This doesn't pertain to the school board or anything, but tell us a little bit about the what you're doing for the vets to on the trips to is it to
Washington?
Washington.
Yeah.
And I know Ray Warren is very active in that also.
Oh, good. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was adopted by a Navy officer. He spent almost 30 years in the Navy. He worked up the ranks, and he retired as a Chief Warrant Officer. So needless to say, he taught me discipline and hard work. And those values that he instilled in me at a young age carried me throughout my life. And that's why I'm standing here today. Because of the things that he taught me, he's given me the strength to be able to stand up and run for school board against a potentially really difficult campaign. But I know that with his strength and the things that he taught me, and all that the military has taught me about defending our country, defending our Constitution, standing up for what's right, the rule of law, I can maybe make a difference. So that being said, I have been working with our military active duty as well as our veterans for a long, long time. I'm involved with our Fort Carson group. In fact, I'm going to be going down there working with a man by the name of Paige Lanier when I get back from the honor flight next weekend. I am going on the honor flight this weekend. I'm so excited. I'm taking 2 veterans with me. I cannot tell, and I have the great honor, I have to tell you this. They nominated me last night to lead the color guard and the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to be standing on the podium with our color guard and leading that ceremony. I cannot even be more honored. So I'm also involved with our Veterans of Foreign War. I'm a Post 1 member, actually, in Denver, the oldest post in the state. I am a member of our local Rotary, who I joined specifically because they asked me to get the Rotary involved in military affairs. We have a lot of veterans in the Rotary in Littleton, and so that's specifically my job. I also work with Volunteers of America, helping our veterans get educated and having educational opportunities. I don't know if they realize that there's free education for veterans to look for jobs. I also work with an organization here in Golden, providing anything from financial resources to clothing to food for veterans in need and homeless veterans. I work with Soldiers Angels, providing food to homeless veterans. So pretty much heavily involved. That's my passion, it's my heart. And if I were to be elected to the school board, one of the things I would be very, very, very concerned about is what we're teaching our children in our education system about our country and about the Constitution, making sure that we are teaching history the way that we should. So
Maybe Matt would like to coattail on that question for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I'm not as heavily involved in the military as Erica. With my younger kids, I spend most of my time at the ball fields and things of that nature. But I do agree with Erica on a few of the things that she said, absolutely, and that is making sure that we do teach our kids the way history should be taught. Not shying away from things in our past, but also giving the respect and the due to the people that served and fought for this brave country, especially the founders. And I think it's important that we do protect our heritage and make sure that we instill in our children the same feelings that I think a lot of us in this room have about that group of people, and I think it's important that we do that.
Okay, more questions?
No one here? Marlon always asks that question.
What was your
He
name?
learned
Well,
from
I'm
us.
still Marlon Yankee from Arvada, and I have a advice.
Yes.
I hope you both have the hide of a rhino because you're going to need it. This is just something, just an FYI. I told the same thing to Kim Johnson. She didn't make it. The whole point is you're going to get slings and arrows constantly, all kinds of crap, if you will. And it's not going to end with the election because there's only 2 of you, and it's a 5-person board. So you're going to be in the minority, and I hope you're ready for that. Just an FYI. Good luck.
Thank you.
History is, I really should defer to Russ about the history part. He'll give you more on that in a few minutes, I'm sure. And the main thing I need is, where are your envelopes? I don't have them yet. And let's face it, you're going to need money as fast as you can get it.
Who would
And
like one?
Yeah.
I have to have a couple.
We have to say first.
Yeah.
Who would like an envelope? Okay, I'm going to let.
So that is my, let's face it, you need money. Unless you're
We
both
do need
independently rich. Okay. So that
No,
is,
we are not Koch brothers.
okay. And then the kicker is, who do we need to be able, I need to walk precincts. Now, that's the kind of thing I
Both
do.
of them?
Okay.
Are you coordinating with Joan Herman
Yes,
North?
we are.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I want to see you the next time we have a DC meeting.
We do have a volunteer sign-up sheet, so if you'd like to help us and walk the streets with us and put signs in your yard and whatnot when that time comes, we would really
Do
appreciate
you
it.
have the signs today?
No, we don't. We are waiting for some funds.
Okay, all right. Anyway, the whole point is,
Yeah.
we need to, you don't hesitate to ask for money. And that's
Okay.
normally something people like to do, but in your case, unless I can say, I assume you're not independently wealthy,
No.
money.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Excellent.
next. All right.
Larry Cameron from Pleasant View.
Hi.
I'm going to test your hides.
Okay.
You're going to close our school, the school board is, and I want to know, are you going to turn the title to the school over to the district? I think communities have run their own schools for millennium, and if you're going to close our school, then we ought to get the property back. It's it appears to me that it was a plot to shut that school down because of possibly because of the political complexion of the district. There's only 2,500 families there, but they're pretty red. And there was a manipulation of the population of the school for 3 or 4 or 5 years that would cause its attendance to go down to a place where it wasn't viable. And I think we ought to take the school back. We have our own sewer, we have our own water, we have our own rec district. I think we could do our own school too and just get rid of the bureaucracy that is way too powerful up there anyway.
Are you talking charter school?
Our elementary school. Bell is our junior high.
Turn it into a charter school.
Whatever. But there's a valuable asset in the school and the property. I think we could run it. Or we can get it run. We have a Con Mutual for our water now. And there you are.
Well, I just want to comment on that. What's your name, sir?
Larry Cameron.
Larry. Thank you for that comment. And Matt's going
Do you mind if I take this
I
one
wish you
first?
would. Go for
Okay. So as I mentioned, I did volunteer over at Pleasant View Elementary prior to the situation that happened with the board. And first of all, I will say that when I was there, I did notice a sense of community in that school. And I felt that the teachers, the parents, everyone involved did feel that sense of community. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today. I watched the board meeting when they decided to to make that happen. Then I went back and saw what happened to that community after the fact. People in that community it wasn't just a school for them. It was a place for their kids to eat, potentially. It was a place for parents that needed resources to go look for jobs to get those. They had a garden where they were teaching kids things that they weren't learning other places. I don't know.
They had guinea pigs.
They did. It was a great school. And to the point to your question about where should the title in that goes, I'm still trying to understand where that happens and where that's going. That was one of the first questions I asked when I got involved with this, is what does happen to the deed? I live near a neighborhood school, or potentially 3 neighborhood schools, that would fall below the 300 number that could potentially close those schools. So it's important to me to protect those schools so that doesn't happen in other areas. But I also do like the entrepreneurial spirit that places like Pleasant View and Peck Elementary had, where they're trying to make a magnet out of that school. So I don't know exactly where that title will go. That's something that I will be looking into, obviously. But I agree with you that we need to look at how it impacts an entire community and not just take a look at a building or a set of X number of kids. We have to look at the entire impact and what that's going to do to everybody involved.
Let me interrupt just for a second. Those of you who read your Colorado Constitution regularly know that if you give $20 or more, you have to fill out all kinds of forms. So we've got pennies, nickels, and dimes in here, and there's one $20 bill. And so we're going to give you the penny back to you, so we're legal. Don't spend it all in one place. And since ladies are first, this is, let's see, probably for you. Yes, this is for Erica.
Fred.
Fred, was the $20 limit apply to school board races?
I don't know. I was.
There is no campaign contribution limit. If you want to give more than 20, luckily, put it in an envelope, write your name and your profession. If you want to support with a few pennies or cash that's in your pocket, if you give more than $20, take a penny out, because they are required to list your name and your profession if you do more than $20. So take a penny.
So Russ, if you're going to give one of your $1,000 bills, you're going to have to write a check and fill out the form.
Yep.
And we're going to pass that around again for Matt. So
Fred,
yes.
just logistically, would it make sense to double your contribution and pass it around once and then split it?
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that.
Because we're in this together.
Okay, if they're willing. Okay, that's a good idea. So when it gets
Bring it back
back,
and start it again.
Yeah, sorry.
that gives you guys time to give it some thought.
Well, I just want to comment on what you're asking. Along with Matt, I believe that our schools are the fabric of our society. Strong schools, strong neighborhood schools create good citizens, create good government, create good property values, create good jobs. So I, if elected to the board, will be against closing our small neighborhood schools. I think it's really important to evaluate the budget first and engage our community in these decisions that affect, that sense of community, because as Matt said, those neighborhood schools are more than just schools to some of these neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we understand what we're doing and engage all of the voices before we do that. But I'm definitely going to be a voice against closing our schools and moving our 6th graders into our middle schools without understanding the entire picture. And we will definitely ask those tough questions about what's going to happen to the title, what's going to happen to me as a taxpayer in my community with this kind of stuff. And that's a good idea. And take back your schools. One of the things we need to do is we need to take back our schools. We cannot, as a community, as parents, as people living in our communities, we cannot allow failure to be an option. And you know what we need to do? It takes all of us. It takes us to stand up and speak. So that's something that I would be definitely encouraging and working on if elected to the board.
Here, here. Okay, I'm going to interrupt again. It's been around. Who did I miss? Oh, there's one of those 500s. Yeah, take a penny.
Thank you so
I always
much.
encourage people to take out less than they put in.
You don't have.
Okay, anybody else? Fred, whose picture was on?
Erica, what district are you running in?
Oh, District 2 against Susan Harmon.
And where is the geographical description of that?
District 2 covers everything from Golden up the mountain area, Conifer, Evergreen, down Chatfield, Littleton area. So it's just kind of, it's the biggest area, but how do I explain it, Laura?
The most important thing is everybody votes.
Oh, yeah, everybody votes. So, yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Pretty much, yes. So I live in a little teeny tiny pocket in Chatfield, right across the street from Chatfield State Park, which is just a little tiny area, and then, so it's kind of odd the districting. I think the zoning's a little weird in my opinion, but I thought I was in District 5, to be honest, because all my kids pretty much go to District 5 schools, but that's my area is mostly the mountain areas, Golden, this part of Littleton.
And for myself, I'm running in District 1, which is typically what I think of as the Arvada, Pomona, and Stanley Lake High School areas. It's essentially I-70 and Kipling, and I like to think of it as a large 7 up the side and top of Jefferson County. So all the way up to Boulder and Broomfield up there, and then around over the top to the Broomfield schools. Not the Candelas area, but that northern part.
More questions?
Oh. You're in a heap of trouble now.
And Dan right behind you's got a question too.
I'm going to quit doing that.
Okay.
You have that.
Okay.
I would address Clint's comment earlier on. Would we have the police state that we have, or the 100 million civilian deaths that have occurred from a result of American intervention in Europe militarily? Laura, who was the first to create a thesis or a treatise on education, and when?
Jesus?
Description on how to approach education of the young.
She answered it.
I think Jesus said, love your neighbor and be smarter than your enemy.
Actually, it was a French woman in the very end of the 800s. And that's almost 900 years prior to what we think now. How do you address concerns? And I have asked the board 2 boards ago, compare us, or our students here in Colorado, against students back, say, in New England, where they spend less and get more. How do we address that? And the school board could not answer that question. They kicked it around. They sent me back a letter. We don't know what they do elsewhere outside the state.
Hand it back to Dan. What will be next? Okay, answer.
Well, personally, I believe that it's not how much you spend, it's how you spend it. And for me, if I were to be elected to the board, I'm going to be asking those tough questions. Are we utilizing our taxpayer dollars the most effective way to ensure student achievement? Failure is not an option. When my kid comes home with a grade of 50% or less, that's unacceptable to me. If they've done the best that they can, of course, right? So for me, for the board, current board, to tout success as 50% is unacceptable to me. It should be unacceptable to all of our taxpayers, because 50% is not going to breed success in our communities. 50% is not going to get us protection on the front lines defending this country. So that being said, more money does not equate with efficiency, in my opinion. So, that's how I would answer that question. What do you think, Matt?
Well, in my professional background, I'm an IT systems manager, so I take a look at data and try to make sense of that and see and look for trends, look for good ideas. So what I would do is I would take a look at what they're doing and also look at what we're doing, see where the differences are, and make sure that we are spending our money as wisely as possible. To piggyback off of what Erica said, I think it is important that we're efficient with our dollars. But I do think that it's important to also look at what other schools are doing and try to get some ideas on how we can better serve our students.
So can you guys take 1 minute and just level set? We just announced some test scores last week, which everybody in this room might not be aware of. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, some of the, you mentioned 50%, but I don't know what that means.
Sure. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and take that. So as I mentioned, I have Are we okay? Oh, that's better. Thank you. As I mentioned, I have 4 children, the oldest of which is a 2nd grader. In Jefferson County, to what Laura just mentioned, the scores that came out just recently, Jefferson County is better than state average. But based on the current statistics, it's possible that 2 out of my 4 children would not be at proficiency level when they graduate 3rd grade in literacy. 2 of the 4 would be below. That's the 50% mark that she's mentioning there. While the state average is lower than that, we are a little higher than that, but that's not acceptable. We need to get that higher. The 50% is a place to start, but definitely not a place to finish.
So right now in the state of Colorado, Jefferson County is achieving less than 50% in English literature, and then almost barely 40% in math from 3rd grade to 8th grade. Our kids are not prepared when they graduate from high school, I guarantee you that.
Where's our mic? Oh, Dan, you're next.
Dan Bistrip, Arvada. Assuming you both win, you're going to be a minority on the board. What preparation have you had or do you anticipate making so that you can hold the line or perhaps prevail in the face of being in the minority? Have you read The Art of War by Sun Tzu?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Well, for me, it's really important that we have balance on the board. I strongly believe that politics has no place on the school board. It's not about left, right, black, or white. It's about the child in the middle who we're fighting for. So for me, if I were to be so blessed to be elected, I would want to make sure that I'm working with my community and speaking with my community to make sure I am their voice, not just my voice. So I would want to make sure that, if I'm speaking for my constituents or my community, I will vote accordingly, and that's the best I can do. And that's, I don't know, I have to wait till we get elected, I guess. But that's my promise.
How about developing relationships?
100%. Developing those relationships with my community, which I love to do. I love speaking. I love being in my community. So that's something that I can bring to the table.
And I think, from my perspective, Fred, I think you brought it up, relationship building. I know going into this that we are going to be in the minority, and that's fine. I want to have constructive dialogue with the current board. I have respect for the current board. They went through some difficult times, and they have brought back decorum a little bit to the board, so I appreciate that. In my meetings with them, they've been respectful to me, and that's all I can return back to them. That being said, I still have strong-held convictions that I won't waver on. I can disagree respectfully and try to come to a good mutual agreement. To Erica's point about the constituency, right now, from what I'm hearing in the community, there's a big voice that's not being heard in Jefferson County. When I go onto the board, whether I'm a minority on that board or not, it's not just me. I'm representing that entire part of Jefferson County that doesn't feel heard. So even though I am a minority going in, I feel that I have that backing behind me. And again, the relationship building, I'm not there to start fights. I'm there to have a constructive dialogue and try to come to the best agreement possible. So that's how I will handle that. And being a father of 4 kids, I'm always in the minority anyway. So.
Yeah, just quickly, I heard a real good commentary the other day by Mrs. Boggs, and I don't mean to take her thunder, but this business of transferring 6th graders into this junior high or 7th, 8th grade class, I get the feeling sometimes the school board looks for problems to fix while there's more huge problems maybe not being addressed. In other words, with the 6th grade, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, specifically on the 6th grade, that's one of the issues that you can find on my website if you'd like to take a look. I'm hearing a lot of that in the community. From a financial standpoint, to get the capacity that we would need in those middle schools to bring the 6th grade up, that's at a conservative estimate would cost us $50 million to bring up the schools to fit those kids. That $50 million, in my opinion, could be better used to give an upgrade to Green Mountain High School or Wheat Ridge High School, or to fix the problems that we know Alameda has. To your point, I think there is a bit of trying to look for things that maybe don't need to be looked for. And what I'm hearing in the community is the community is not comfortable with the 6th grade move. In fact, I've had mothers that have reached out to me saying, I need to talk to you. What can you do to keep my 6th grader from moving out of the middle, or moving into the middle schools? So I think that is a great question, and it is something that the community is sensing, and that's something that's that balance that I want to bring to the board to give those people a voice that aren't being heard right now.
Yeah. So for me, I'm fundamentally not opposed to 6th graders in middle school. All 3 of my kids were 6th graders in middle school, but with long-standing history and a plan, and that's been in plan for a long time. This particular move that the school board is instituting has been done quickly, without enough community engagement, without asking the tough questions. What's going to happen to our 5th grade teachers? What's going to happen to the Title I status of the elementary schools? They're going to have lower enrollment. What's going to happen to our autistic children and the programs they receive only in elementary school? There are no programs for autistic children in middle school and high school. What's going to happen to families who kids are split up? Communities are going to be split up. How are we going to come up with the $50 million? Who's going to pay for that? I mean, there's all kinds of really tough questions that were not addressed nor answered. And as Matt said, our community has not heard the answer to these questions. They're concerned, as well as the elementary school model of teaching is different than it is in middle school. So what's going to happen to those teachers as well? So it's really important to have that discussion with board members, to ask the tough questions. Make sure that we are educating our community, make sure we're doing things in a methodical, planned out fashion, and then we can maybe win over our community, if it makes sense, financially and logistically, and if it's in the best interest of our kids.
Okay, I'm still Arlene Yelke from Arvada. You need to realize the people on the school board right now are bought and paid for by this union. Union's priorities are 1, money, 2, power, 3, control. That's exactly what they're after. And that's what they have now. And if you threaten that, they're going to smile at you and they're going to tell you nice things and then they're going to put a knife in your back. Just realize that's going to happen. And that's exactly what they're going to do now. This 6th grade thing, from my point of view, is distraction because they stole the recall. Okay? I'm sure you're aware that the union, national union paid, what, 200 and some odd thousand? And then the state did 113,000, and its Jefferson County Union was 20,000, and maybe 3,000 from other sources. And that was what I think they call it Jefferco United or whatever it was, which said, this is all a grassroots effort where the union's not involved. Obviously, a lot. But of course, it didn't come out until after the election. That's the people you're dealing with. And they're going to stab you in the back every opportunity they get. Get used to it. One other little point from my point of view, we've addressed it a little bit. Other places in the country are doing much better, and other places in the world are doing much better than what we have. Finland, Slovakia, South Korea, I mean the list goes, we're number 20-something on the list. So if those people can do it, we can. And especially, I mean, like I said, we addressed earlier, Massachusetts does better. I understand in Washington, Washington, D.C. has got a better program. Why can't we go piggyback on what those people have already done and maybe improve it for Jefferson County and go from there? Realize what you do for the next 2 years if you get elected is going to carry over to the next election. You're in the minority now. There's 2 more coming in 2 years. If we get one of those, you're not in the minority anymore. Okay? And you'll still have 2 years of your term. Just really think about these things when you're talking to people, because you're campaigning for the next 2 years for the other people that are going to be running. If you do a good job and tell them what the people use some common sense and so people know what's going on, we've got a much better chance 2 years from now.
I'd like to offer this. You're running for public office. That makes you somebody around these parts. Each one of you knows how many people you're representing. We have newspapers, local papers that have news holes. They're trying to fill their paper with something. And you running for office and answering these questions, you have the opportunity and the capability to write guest columns. Now that doesn't mean they'll print them. But the people need to get to know you, and I mean quickly, because of the way this had to happen. And you guys have done so far a great job. But I want to encourage you, and I'm going to encourage all these people here, for the very first time, write a letter to the editor. Oh, forgot about that. Okay, we'll get back to you.
Speaking of grassroots efforts, ladies and gentlemen, before I split this money up, I have it all counted. I know how much it is. Is there anybody that would like to contribute, given what these folks have done so far, a little bit more, because we're talking about grassroots again, and getting the money to the people who need it to fight the union? Just a comment. I'm going to sit back down again and count the money and split it up between you two. It's not great, but it's okay.
It's a good start.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought we were going to pass the bucket twice.
Well, we decided to split it in half.
We decided to pass it once and split it. I'll pass it again. It's a passable bucket.
So Fred asked me to comment briefly on being in the minority. And I think some of you know that Paula Noonan and I were elected in the same year. And I don't think you could have two more diametrically opposed viewpoints from where we came from. But through a lot of respectful conversation, while there were a lot of things we didn't agree on, we were able to come together on some really key issues and bring InBloom, for example, and the Bill Gates attempts to take all of our students' data. We were able to stop that dead in its tracks. I think Matt and Erica did a great job talking about building relationships. When your communities are behind you, and that's one thing I appreciate about this group, is when I come to this group and say, hey, show up, you do? When the community's behind you and the board's making a decision, it's really hard for them to make a decision when the community's standing in front of them asking for something else. And I love Pleasant View. I've fought to keep Pleasant View open dozens and dozens of times. This time, the Pleasant View community, because I think you're right, and over the last number of years, they've managed the enrollment so it wasn't as high as it was before, but the Pleasant View community didn't show up. Stover community showed up, Peck, Swanson, even Pennington to some degree showed up. So when you guys show up and they have a respectful conversation, you guys make the difference, and you can get to a place like Paula and I did, where we respect each other and we can vote the same way because of our common beliefs.
Tell them what happened with you and this group, and you said a week from Thursday is the meeting. Raise your hand. I mean,
So Fred's always taught me we have a how many member school board? 5-member school board. It takes how many to make a decision? So if we're trying to get 3 people to make a decision and you guys are showing up, Fred's taught me, come to this group, go to other groups, and specifically ask how many are willing to show up. So I'm going to practice this. Today's what? Monday? 9/11. On Wednesday, 9/13, at 6:30 in the evening, right over here at Wheat Ridge High School, our very good friends, our Vadans for Progressive Action. Those are our very good friends, right? And Support Jeffco Kids. They're having a school board forum right here at Wheat Ridge High School at 6:30. It goes from 6:30 to 8. Our Vadans for Progressive Action.
Is that a secret?
How many of you, is that a secret? How many of you would be willing to give up your Wednesday night, this week, the 13th, show up at Wheat Ridge High School with a smile on your face, so these guys can recognize somebody in the room? Please raise your hand if you're willing to give up your Wednesday night and come over to Wheat Ridge High School for an hour and a half. Okay, I got 1, 2. Okay, Dee's going to send her good thoughts. I know the Yankees are going to be there, because that's without question.
Invite your friends.
Ray Warren, you coming?
In Cody, Wyoming.
Cody, Wyoming. Clint, are you coming?
I think I can do it.
Okay, got 3 people. When I did that when I was on the school board,
Marlon,
when you guys say you're showing
did you
up,
say you're going?
you're showing up. And it makes a difference.
Carpool?
And that's my ask this week. Wednesday night, bring somebody with you. So I got Marlon and Clint, 6:30. 6:30. Starts at 6:30. Wheat Ridge High School, which is right up here at 32nd and Kipling. Not that far from here. Can't get lost. Up Kipling, go east on 32nd. It's right there. Big thing on the left. Can't miss it. As Matt said, one of the high schools that hasn't been upgraded, but we should spend $50 million moving middle schoolers. Thank you, Fred, for allowing me to weigh in. And thanks for the 3 of you and the rest of you who may be able to make it and or bring friends.
More questions for our people? Oh, boy. Okay, we'll start Elmer and we'll go over here. Russ is almost always last.
Yeah, Elmer Dutton Golden. I feel like our vocational programs could be strengthened in the county. There's tremendous need for tradesmen, and there's a lot of jobs, and a lot of good paying jobs in the trades area, and I think we have a lot of students that would do quite well there, and we're rather limited on the programs we have there. So I certainly would like to see more expansion of the vocations. So whatever your comments on what's going on and so forth.
Matt and I were met with our school board, actually, last week, and our superintendent, and he actually brought up the new vision for, what's it called, the 2020, the Jeffco 2020 vision, where they were talking about bringing in vocational trade and more experiential learning to the classroom. And so that's something that they're actually working on that I actually support right now. So I'm anxious to see how that comes out. I'm not sure what their ideas are, but I agree with you that we would definitely need to have those types of experiential learning experiences to help kids who are not necessarily going into a career or college, but into a trade of some sort.
My father's a machinist. My mother cut hair. My grandpa worked on a refinery. My father-in-law's a plumber. I have great respect for tradespeople. I think it's important to realize that not every child that goes through Jefferson County is going to college. We need to be career and college ready when these kids come out of 12th grade. To your point of vocational or trade training, I think it's important to offer a choice for our students. Charter schools are a choice. Montessori schools are a choice. And I think a vocational school should be a choice if that's what they think is best for their family and for their child. And when we get to that more advanced stage, when we're talking high school kids, we need to give them part of that choice too, I think. And as a parent, I intend to do that with my children and talk with them. But I think it's important that we look at choice holistically and do offer those choices for people that may not be wanting to go to college, but want to have a career. And I think tradespeople are something that we definitely need to promote, and I think it's part of the fabric of our country.
Good morning, Phil Wagner. I was just wondering, talking the other day with a neighbor and talking about how when the voters here in Colorado voted to legalize marijuana, like 80 or 90 or even 100% of that tax money from marijuana sales was supposed to go to schools. And last I heard it was like only about 10 to 15% of that money is going to schools. So I was just wondering, is there any way, if you guys get on the board, could you send a lobbyist down to the state capitol and say, hey, where's our money?
So I'll take a crack at that. It's important to account for our money going out, and it's also important to account for that money coming in. And accountability works two ways, right? The same way. We do need to account for where that money is being spent, but if we are being promised as a constituency, as a community, that money should be coming in from certain things like this, absolutely, we'll follow up and find out where those things are coming from and why they're not coming and what the breakdown is. And if it turns out that maybe it wasn't the story or we need to come back, that's where that community involvement, going out and talking to people and hearing what they have to say, I think is important. But yeah, absolutely, we have to account for what we're being told on both sides.
And I can't really say much on top of that because that's exactly what I would say. But I have the copy of the budget right in front of me, and it does not delineate specifically where that money goes in, or where that money, the expenditures are. It gives you kind of a general broad idea. It does not tell you specifically line by line by line. So that's important for us to be able to ask those tough questions. Okay, what does that line item mean? Tell me specifically, break it down for us. Because nobody really knows. From what I'm hearing in the community, people are asking the same questions. Where's our marijuana revenue going? Nobody really knows right now. So that's important to clarify that. Hi.
Where's Mike?
Yeah, Larry Cameron again. Your mathematics of proficiency in journeyman work and that 50% is not acceptable. That's half wrong all the time. That's the story of the rabbit and elephant stew. One rabbit and one elephant is 50%. That won't work. And in the lower grades, this math proficiency has to be really powerful. You can't have a journeyman half right and half wrong. It turns out it never works. So you need to prioritize that.
Well, Jefferson County definitely is celebrating. If you go to their website, brand new website information's on there. They're celebrating the fact that they are better than Colorado on the average, like Matt was discussing earlier.
What's twice nothing?
Yes, right. So Matt and I are dedicated and committed to making sure that we don't settle for 50% or 40% or even 20% of our 8th graders for performing or achieving math. That's unacceptable. That's just ridiculously unacceptable. So I want to make sure that we hold our teachers accountable, we hold our administration accountable, and we also need to make sure that we involve that parent engagement piece to make sure, because I'm a very involved parent. I have high expectations for my kids. I want to make sure they're doing their best because I know that 50% is, I have a daughter in college right now, and a daughter who just graduated from college right now. I can guarantee you right now that if they were to get 50%, if they settled for 50%, they'd be homeless, pretty much. That's unacceptable.
Okay, I finally get to the microphone. T. Altman's. Years ago, the charter school waiting list was a waiting list, a visible waiting list. And it was a visible evidence of the demand. Then we had a superintendent in his wise thing, put it to lottery. I propose to put it back to waiting lists so that parents know exactly where they are. There is such a demand for charter schools, and by design, the teachers union block more charter schools. Those aren't their schools, those are the taxpayers' schools, and by design, taxpayers are demanding more charter schools. And I hope that you will allow more charter schools to be formed. I am tired of paying taxes where it's sabotaged by the teachers union. It is not what, parents want. And I hear parents talking, they don't tell the principal, because the principal is the one who picks the PTA members, the presidents, and they want their kids not to be bullied. And I contend the teachers union bullies parents, and I've seen this myself, and students. We need we really need more charter schools. The teachers union is the largest union in the United States, and it's got to end.
I agree with that.
Okay, and I know Russ has a comment. In fact, that might be the last one, because I want to remind you, probably by Thursday, you tell me, when would this be up on our website? Thursday? Okay, keep in mind, this is available for the planet. And so anything you put out on it, you can put not the website itself, but the exact address, the URL. And just say you want to know more about our thoughts on things? Click here. I mean, it's a service that you can take advantage of, and I don't think people have. Okay, Russ? He's been grinding away. Who knows what he's doing?
Yes, a couple of things. since the 6th grade shift has come up, do you know, or what do you know as to the background of it? I have heard that the idea is to reduce the student bodies in a number of schools across the district so that they are candidates for shutdown. However, if we can get preschools in there for the 3 and 4-year-olds, we get more kids into the educational establishment. That's number one. Number two is course content, and that is something you haven't really brought up. But my son, when he took AP History in Golden High School, was given a summer reading list. And none of the books on that list had anything to do with American AP history. The only book that I could see in that particular list that I had any familiarity was with For Whom the Bell Tolls by Hemingway. So Dad and my son wrote a paper on the Spanish Civil War, but I couldn't figure out how I could possibly write a paper on any of the other books that were on that list. So what do you do about course content and summer reading lists for one thing?
Well, I think that goes back to Russ. I think that goes back to balance on the board. I think it's important to have that conversation, and I think right now with the current board that we have, they don't want to hear some of those messages. And I think it's important that when I get on the board that I will take a look at the process that we have for bringing curriculum and resources in and making sure that that lines up with the entire vision of Jefferson County and not just the people that are being heard right now. So that's how I would handle that. As far as specific reading lists and things of that, I think that, again, it goes back to, I am an advocate for choice. So I think a little bit of that does have to stay at the local school and to the teachers to dictate what fits their lesson plan and things of that nature. But I think it's important that we do have that balance so that it's not that one-sided reading list that you're seeing.
So, Russ, to answer the first part of your question about the reason behind moving 6th graders into middle school, from what I've heard and from what I've read, it's primarily building efficiency. Utilizing the efficiency of our school buildings, but I have a question. If we're talking about building efficiency, why do we need to spend $50 million to build onto existing schools? That doesn't make sense to me. So, and then about, can I talk as a mom for a minute? Kind of not as a political candidate. Is that okay?
You can tell a joke.
Because the issue of curriculum is why one of the reasons why I even decided to run. Because I'm a mom, first and foremost. I have kids who've gone through this exact situation. I have a son who is in pre-AP literature, language arts right now. And over the summer, he had a reading list, required a reading list. None of the books I liked. And he chose one. He goes, Mom, I don't like this book. There's a lot of language in here. I don't like what they're talking about. And me, I didn't know what to do at the time because it was required to read over the summer. So he picked the less of all evils, I guess, and read this book. I've had parents, I cannot tell you how many parents have begged me, please save my kids. Get Common Core out of our schools. Get it out of there. And that's why I'm running. I'm speaking for them. I'm speaking for me as a mom because I am concerned when my daughter comes home with math and my husband, who's been an engineer for 30 years, smart as heck, can't do my daughter's 5th grade math. That's a concern to me as a mom. I'm hearing the same thing from my moms in my community. They're concerned about what their kids are learning in school. And to Dee, to answer your question, and Matt, to piggyback on Matt, I'm all about school choice. The parents ultimately have to know what's best for their kids, right? So choice is so important. If we're opposed to charter schools, then fix our neighborhood schools, fix what's going on in our neighborhood schools. But charter schools are an option. They're going to make our public schools better, So I'm all about school choice. Matt's about school choice. Hope we have your vote.
Don Ryan from Wheat Ridge. Neither of you two sound like socialists to me. But I'm sure you're smart enough to figure out that there are quite a few socialists who are teachers because they have the feel good, they want to help the kids and so forth. Also, the school board is full of socialists. And when I walk, proof of that is when I walk into to the school board meeting with a red shirt, I get looks of hate from everybody. They like make you fall down just walking through.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you if you will emphasize that you feel good for them, they're good-hearted, they want to get things done, but point out 1,000 times a meeting, over and over and over, so it might eventually even get into the media, that the 50% problem that you were talking about, everything they've been doing forever and ever is not working. If you want to feel good about the kids, we have to do something different. We have to change. Please say that over and over and over and point that out to them. We know you want to feel good, but it's not working. What can we do different? Do charter schools, try something different. Thoughts from you?
Oh, so for me, in addition to looking to see what else is working, the key, in my opinion, is community engagement. Put the power back in the hands of the parents. Parents need to be the architects of policy. We need to remind them that. The schools exist, the teachers exist to help our children, but we need to have that voice. Unfortunately, too many of us as parents expect the schools to do it all. They really do. We live in a society where both parents are working, and it's tough times. Economically, a lot of our families are suffering. We're on fixed incomes. We're living paycheck to paycheck. Our student fees are high. It's a difficult time for us all. And so a lot of the parents, out of desperation, I can't wait till school starts. I'm so sick of my kids over the summer. So this is reality. And that, in my opinion, we need to work on really giving engagement back to the parents and understanding what they're going through so that somehow we can speak for them even if they don't have the opportunity or the time to be in the schools. They still need to be engaged.
I was just going to say, have you thought about a mechanism to get the parents involved?
Well, as a PTA mom, one of the things I was invited to be in charge of was the community engagement piece. And that has not existed in my school yet. So I'm the very first PTA mom to instigate or to create a program for community engagement. And so what I'm doing is I'm calling, I'm walking, I'm calling people every day, all the time, all my family members and all my friends and all my neighbors. So it's just one process at a time, making sure and making it clear I want to hear from you. I talked to a woman the other day who completely disagreed with my platform, or my issues. I can tell that she was very much against charter schools, very vehemently, I must say. And but I was kind, and I listened to her. I acknowledged her because we need to acknowledge their voice. They feel the way they do for a reason, rather than ridiculing them and just shutting them down. We've got to listen first before we speak. And then, when we're willing to have that conversation, the animosities go away, and we can learn to work together. We just need to make sure their voice is heard, and sometimes that solves its own problem.
And I agree with the community involvement. I think that's important. When my child first went into school, I took it upon myself to find out everything I could, and I think it's important that we give parents the opportunity to do that. And I think I saw it at Peck Elementary, where the parents became very involved in that entrepreneurial spirit, where they do want to own that school and own what their kids are doing. And I think that's a model that we need to look for. We think of charter schools as the schools doing that, but there are opportunities for neighborhood schools to do that too. Those neighborhood schools
are neighborhood.
Absolutely, I agree. But I think it's important that we celebrate the small victories, right? I coach little kids. You have to acknowledge small victories. I get that. But we can't continue to do that every single day. We need to take those small victories and start piling those up and making big victories. Because, like you say, you can't be 50% wrong all the time in certain careers. And these kids we need to start building on those building blocks in 3rd grade so that by the time they're in 8th grade, they are competent and can do what they need to do.
Big question.
Short question. Shorter.
PERA. It's not sustainable. We've been warned by Walker Stapleton. Yet we're still selling years. People can buy years to retire. Instead of having your whatever years to retire, you need 5 more years, you buy it. That should never be, should never have been proposed, should not continue, because para is not sustainable. And as a taxpayer, I feel like someone's still picking my pocket. And I want to encourage you guys to look at that, because the teachers union does not dictate to me what I pay out for not service not served.
Okay, well, we got to drop. We're going to invite you back.
And I've already told them both, and I think they'll be here a lot. But you're welcome every week. And I will give you. I know the moderator, and he has assured me I'll give you. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we'll have our treasurer come up and give you the good news. I'm going to say a few things. Or do you want the last question again?
No, but I say you're going to say some things, and I say finally you're going to say something.
Oh, okay. Boy, that's tough.
Can I just say something really fast? Go ahead. We have what the ballot's going to look like. So if you would like one of these, raise your hand, because I want you to remember that the order of which will be on the ballot.
You want to guess?
You're on the bottom. I'm on the bottom, right next to Ron Mitchell. I don't think my name's going to be as big, or Matt's name is going to be on the middle ballot. And then, who would like a flyer so you remember who we are and how to get a hold of us? Okay, let's see. Does anybody want to help us pass this out? That'd be great. Would you mind? Thank you so much for your time. We hope you have your vote.
I do want to make a comment so you know how things work. Costco came up with a book called The Patriot's Guide to American History. It was almost 1,000 pages, had a blue cover.
Marlon, pass them out and I'll take
and
what's left.
Went and testified about it. Well, I'm going to let you tell him what he said. You be the name dropper.
Well, this was when Dave Thomas was...
I wasn't going to drop that name.
We're not